we're so incredibly happy to have you here because you have composed much of our music, and certainly over the last 5 to 7 years, our favorites, the two really large pieces that we continue to sing and continue to love. And so make sure, if you're watching this interview, to then bop over and click on all the Andrew Lippa pieces that we're posting this week on SFGMC TV. So look at that. Oh, we have visual.
Just a little bit of promotional materials.
Yes,
San
yes.
Francisco Gay Men's Chorus. There they are.
Oh my goodness.
I love that photo. It's so fabulous.
That's beautiful. So Andrew, what are you doing right this minute?
So everybody deals with this particular period in our collected history in their own way. We try to come together in similar ways, like through Zoom and through music and through conversation. And also, I think we all have our own individual things. So I have managed to deal with my anxiety and my fear and all of the things that have come up by watching Tiger King on Netflix in 2 sittings. I watched all the episodes. Tom and I watched all the episodes. And then I went to Twitter and I announced that I was going to write the Tiger King musical, and that I don't have the rights, but you don't either. And don't you dare get in my way, because I'm going to do it. And thus began, on March 28th, thus began me, and I don't tweet like this. I don't have this other personality that comes out. I have become this other thing, and I'm promoting all of my Tiger Cubs. And I write 20 tweets a day, and I wrote a song for Carol Baskin that is dropping on Friday, and it's sung by one of our very favorite singer-actor women friends, who I cannot say who it is yet. Well, this is going to be aired after, so I can. Kristen Chenoweth, and Kristen is doing a video that's going to go with it as well. And we went out to about 40 songwriters, me and Kurt Deutsch, who is the owner of Ghostlight Records, and that you can find Unbreakable in your where records were sold.
Great job.
And we reached out to about 40 songwriters and said, hey, write a parody song. And people are responding. So we're going to start releasing them online and then put them in some sort of story order based on whatever anybody wrote. We're not writing a musical, and we're making sure that it's a parody. All you legal scholars out there, it's a parody. And I wrote it, and so I am like daily obsessing over Tiger King, the musical, a parody. And I can think of no better way to handle the insanity of the moment than with a little bit of my own insanity.
Oh, I knew somebody would jump on this, and I'm so glad it's you.
Oh, I agree. I want you to go.
I don't want to be talking solely as highbrow. I don't want to be only highbrow.
So let's go back. Let's go back to the beginning and how you and the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus started this relationship that we're in.
Well, this is my recollection, Tim, and this might be more of a conversation than an actual monologue. My recollection is that in October 2011, I got an email from a man I do not know named Dr. Timothy Seelig, the music director, the fairly new music director of the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus, telling me in this email that the chorus was reaching out to about 10 composers and asking us to consider writing a 5-minute piece having something to do with Harvey Milk, based on our observations of his life, his work, his experience in office, his assassination, etc. Anything that might have been something that would inspire us to write a song. And I read this rather long email, and that had a phone number at the bottom. And I thought, I am going to break the rules, because the rules are, you in the digital sphere, you get an email, you respond with the email, you get a text, you respond to the text, you don't cross platforms. But I decided to go for the phone, the old-fashioned phone. And I called Tim. Am I getting this right so far?
Yes, and I dropped the phone. I was literally like, I'm talking to Andrew Lippa, I'm talking to Andrew Lippa. Yeah, that's what happened.
And we talked for a few minutes, and I thanked him, and I said, and I don't know what possessed me, but well, I do know what possessed me. I'll get to that. I I said, this is really wonderful, and I thank you for asking me to write a 5-minute piece, but I don't want to write a 5-minute piece. I want to write the whole thing. I want to write a 60-minute work. And Tim asked me why. We discussed, like, you know, he wanted to know, like, what was it what would I bring to it, and why would I be inspired to do it? And I talked about being, at that time in 2011, I was 46, and how I had not really stood up in the community yet as an out gay person and an artist. But both of those things, I had not put them in the same space. I had not written about my gay life or about the gay lives of any of our predecessors or any of the people who we were living among. I wasn't living in a world of art making and expressing my sexuality at the same time. And I very much felt that my life had reached that point where I wanted to express how I felt and what kind of a musical piece I wanted to write about one of our great gay heroes and what I saw in it. And Tim said that it was a co-commission with 9 or 10 other choruses, as I recall, and that he was going to have to discuss it with them, and that he would get back to me. And he got back to me not too long, a few days, as I recall, maybe a week, and
maybe
said,
10 minutes.
Say again?
Maybe 10 minutes.
Maybe 10. No, it was a few days, and I didn't wash the whole time. I sat here,
Right.
And Tim said that they were all in, and everybody wanted me to do it. And so I wrote I Am Harvey Milk. And in early we were premiering it in June of 2013. And in early 2013, I decided that it was such an unusual piece for me. I'd never written anything like it before. And I didn't know how it was going to work. And we didn't know, the printed page was new, and we wanted to make corrections on the printed page and changes, whatever. So we put together a little presentation of it in New York City in January of 2013 that Tim came to. About 100 people came to see, and we had 16 singers in the chorus and 3 soloists, including me, because we were trying out also whether I should play or would want to play Harvey Milk. And that hour in the room was just transformative. I think everybody went cuckoo, and Tim said, we have to make the orchestra bigger, we'll find the money. And in fact, we did. We were going to do 12 pieces, we did 27. And Bruce Cohen, the Academy Award winning producer, who is a friend and a colleague, came up to me and said, can I produce this? And I said, well, talk to Tim. And that started a relationship with Bruce that continues to this day. And we've produced it all over the place, Lincoln Center and Disney Hall. And we did it under Tim's leadership with 700 plus singers at the gala convention in Denver in 2016, I think that was. Was that 2016? Right. That was in front of almost 5,000 people, while the conservative, what's it called? Whatever that Conservative Action Committee or whatever they are, the American Conservative something or other, in the season of the Trump-Hillary Clinton election. And like, it was crazy. There were all these gay men and women walking around, you know, everybody, all LGBTQIA, everyone walking around this convention center, and then all these like button-down conservatives, like with Laura Ingraham giving speeches, and it was like, the hell? It was crazy. And we did this huge production.
Right.
So cool. So anyway, and since then, I Am Harvey Milk continues to be performed in lots of choruses, and I'm hoping that it will continue. I wrote a companion piece that SFGMC didn't perform, that we did at the Music Center at Strathmore in 2016, called I Am Anne Hutchinson, which I wrote specifically for Kristen Chenoweth to perform the lead in. And that acts as the first act of a piece called I Am Anne Hutchinson, I Am Harvey Milk. And we have some growing interest in seeing if we can get that piece into some kind of shape as a piece of theater. So we'd have to make the chorus a lot smaller and the orchestra a lot smaller in order to financially make that viable. But
Sure.
we have some ideas about how to do that, and we may have a partner. And
Oh, wonderful.
we were getting closer to a conversation, but then here we are in 2020. So we'll see how life goes.
Amazing. So Andrew, after I'm Harvey Milk and we fell in love with you and you fell in love with us, it was just something that we knew was going to last the rest of our lives, the rest of our musical and physical lives for sure. Then in the middle, Dance with the Storm popped up in the most interesting way. How'd that happen?
Well, I had written in 2013 when we premiered I Am Harvey Milk. It was quite a month for me. Got a puppy, and we premiered I Am Harvey Milk to just the response at Norris Auditorium in San Francisco was like unlike anything I'd ever been part of, and the press response also just people love it. It's my only piece that I've ever written where I didn't make any changes. I just sort of wrote it, and they said, "Here it is."
Right.
And most of my pieces have lots of changes. And I also graduated from an interfaith seminary. I had been a seminarian for 2 years, and my graduation was a few weeks before I Am Harvey Milk premiered. And I'm an ordained interfaith minister. And so for our graduation, I had asked our leader of our seminary if I could write a song. One of our fellow seminarians, about in the year prior, when Superstorm Sandy, that was it, Superstorm Sandy, and in the New York area was really hit hard. And one of our fellow seminary students got up and spoke about how he had stood in his living room and saw all the trees reacting to the storm, and that he stood watching the trees for quite a while. And what he realized was that the trees that were rigid, the ones that were unbending and unyielding, were the ones that were most likely to be uprooted and killed by the storm. And he said it was the ones that were willing to dance with the storm that survived. And I got the chills just recalling this.
Me too.
I remember in that class, I remember thinking, that's a song. And so I, put it in my head and wrote it down. Usually I have to write things down because my head's not dependable. And I for seminary graduation, wrote this song that all of our graduates, about 75 of us, performed with me at the piano. And then sometime later, I don't know, a couple years later, Tim reached out to me, you reached out to me and said, hey, do you got anything basically, do you got any songs that we can do and you can turn into a TTBB arrangement? I said, I have this one song I wrote for my seminary graduation, and I wrote a TTBB arrangement, and chorus performed it, recorded it, and then perhaps you can tell the story of how it then became the opening of Gay Chorus Deep South.
Yeah, so we decided in 2016 that we would go on our tour to the South, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, North Carolina, and South Carolina. And we were going there to really just uplift our LGBTQ community, as well as, create some stir about the laws that exist in those states. So I said to Andrew, he actually said, what can I do for you, as I remember it? Is there anything that I can do for the tour? Because he was really moved by what we were doing, taking almost 300 people to the South. And I said, yes, Dance with the Storm. And that was the fastest Andrew, I think, has ever worked. I think it was a week until you had the TTBB arrangement back to us, and we were singing it. And we opened our concert at Grace Cathedral before we left for the tour with Dance with the Storm. And the film crew filmed it, and they chose to open the film, the documentary Gay Chorus Deep South, with Dance with the Storm. So it's had quite a journey getting to the big screen, but it is spectacular. And you'll get to hear that this week on SFGMC TV.
You will. And so, Andrew, I want to take one step back. For those viewers, it's just this is new language for us on SFGMC TV. But for those viewers who are quote unquote tuning in, that may not know who you are, I want to sing your praises because you wrote some fabulous musicals. The Wild Party, of course, The Addams Family. Andrew, would you say that I Am Harvey Milk was sort of your first foray into writing something that had such a social justice bent, because it's really the story, the life of an activist, a politician, through that lens of social justice? Can you share with us?
Yeah, sure. I had not written anything through the lens of social justice, and in a lot of ways, when we premiered I'm Harvey Milk, I was 48, and that's how old Harvey was when he was in office. And in a lot of ways, I identified with Harvey, being Jewish, being gay, being a New Yorker, and being the same age, and also coming to my gay political life, my gay activist life, a bit later in my life. Harvey, didn't really until he was about 40. And I remember when Tim said, "Go ahead, you should write the whole thing," and then it's the old, you go home and you're like, they said yes. Now what do I do?
Right.
And I realized I loved the film Milk. Also, Bruce Cohen and Dan Jinks produced that movie, and my ex-husband worked on the marketing of that film, and so I had a sort of insider's view of how that movie was made and put together. And also, Lance Black and I are beginning work on a musical that also has a social justice bent to it that we're doing with Bruce Cohen, the producer. So there's this whole full circle thing. And I remember thinking, well, look, I'm never going to be able to write anything that that feels as good as that movie does in a traditional narrative. So if I do a then this happened, then this happened, then this happened, biopic style kind of film, I've never experienced a better telling of that kind of story than that movie. And so it felt like a fool's errand to try and do a chronological narrative. And so when I jettisoned that idea, the first thing I wrote for I Am Harvey Milk was what is the opening. It's called an operatic masterpiece about Harvey as a child and Harvey as himself when he was 48, and the two of them meeting, and how the child Harvey wants to live his life in this operatic fashion, and how the adult Harvey kind of did. And when it came time to write the second movement, I wrote the very end of the story, and I wrote a piece called I Am the Bullet, which is a song that is a piece that is sung by the chorus from the point of view of the bullet that entered Harvey Milk's brain. And it's a bizarre idea, and to anthropomorphize a bullet, and at the same time it allowed me to speak in the voice of someone else, some other thing. In a way, it's about, and it became about all of the people who don't claim responsibility for their actions. They're just behaving. The bullet says, I am just a bullet, I do what I'm told. And it's not any different than all of the people in Nazi Germany who said, I didn't do anything, I just followed the rules, I just did what I'm told. And that is a common theme in every society, not just oppressive or repressive societies, where a lot of people just sit back and they don't engage in the political process, they don't vote, they don't get active in any way to help the people who need help. We all recognize, we see somebody fall down the street, everybody will run to help them. But in the larger sense, people don't want to help them. And so when we are often the them, I thought, this is the way to unlock it, is to tell the beginning and tell the ending, and then I can go anywhere I want. And somehow lucked into a structure that allowed us to get to the climax, which is Tired of the Silence, which the foundation, the Harvey Milk Foundation, gave me permission to use some of Harvey's own words. And then I wrote an original lyric that follows that, and allowed us to do the famous speech on the steps of City Hall in June 1978, and end triumphantly with this great rallying cry to the audience, where the chorus and the soloists sing 49 times the words "come out." And there's something incredibly wonderful about the fact that it's 49 times, because Harvey was 40. I'm really into numbers, and Harvey was 48 when he died. And the 49th one is a cappella. It's all building, building, building. And then you hit "come out," the a cappella one. And it tells the audience this pact, which is, we just need each other. Like in a moment where we are right now, where community is very difficult to maintain. Community is built every time voices are joined together. I know that sounds kind of silly, but it's every time two or more people sing together, there is a community, there's a bond formed. So when you have 350 people singing "come out," and they're holding this giant D major chord, D major being the chord that the entire piece begins with as well. So this notion that 60 minutes later, and in a life that spanned 48 years, you're still the person you were. You may have had lots of experiences and grown and changed, but your essential nature is your essential nature. And so all of these themes and ideas I was playing with in a form that isn't a traditional theatrical telling, that isn't a musical per se, and yet at the same time, because of my theatrical brain, I'm always thinking about those connections and how to interweave musical ideas and textual ideas to create something impactful.
That's wow. Love that.
Wow.
And I Am Harvey Milk, the recording is also available. And so please listen to it, or certainly go to the other channels. So we fast forward 5 years later, the chorus is facing its 40th anniversary. And we decided there was nobody better, who knew us better, who wrote more beautifully for men's chorus than Andrew. So we went back and said, okay, Andrew, write something for our 40th anniversary, and good luck. Bye. That was it. No theme, no nothing, no person involved. And that's the result is Unbreakable, that Andrew keeps promoting by holding up the CD like now. Yes, oh, that one. Yes.
Brought to you by Unbreakable, original cast recording, San Francisco.
Yes. And it's spectacular. So how did you choose those pieces to write?
We had a chat, you and I, like as there's some of these are wonderful. Our art form, whether it be chorus singing, choral singing, or theater making, has the potential to be enormous most of the time. I mean, I've written my first musical was a 2-actor musical called John and Jen, so it wasn't that enormous. But the pieces I've done with San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus are these huge undertakings, because they involve so many human beings all in concert, all doing the same thing at the same time. But what's so fabulous about what I love about the process of making things is that really it's just two people who have a phone conversation. Tim and I talk for a while, and like, well, what do you think? Like, I don't know. Like, is that gonna? What if it's an F sharp? And
Right.
and then somehow through the magic of two brains, I sit down, write things, and then 300 and however many people are doing it. Like I mentioned earlier, when we did I Am Harvey Milk in Denver, it was over 700 people. And it just felt like Mahler 8. I don't mean in the sense that I'm comparing myself to Mahler. I mean in the sense of the scope and the size of it. And Unbreakable, I don't know how I got the idea in my head. I started thinking about gay stories that haven't been told. And who are the people who we would want to hear from? Who are the people we would want to sing about, and how to keep a certain amount of gravitas and levity in one evening, and make it all into something. And I don't know why, but I had a thought about August Wilson, the playwright who wrote the 10-play Pittsburgh cycle, known as the Pittsburgh Plays or the Pittsburgh Cycle. 10 plays that took place, each of them in a decade in the 20th century, telling some facet of the African-American experience. Fences being, I think, the most famous one, turned into a film, but there are quite a number of them that are very well known. And Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, and Joe Turner's Come and Gone, and The Piano Lesson, and there are a good number of those plays that people do. And And I thought, well, no one's done that in the LGBTQ community. Nobody's written a chronology of our stories. And I thought, why can't we do that? And so I started to lay out research and start working on where were the stories that we haven't told. So for example, there are a great many stories about the beginning of the AIDS plague in America and the experience of it in the 80s and the fights for funding and the fights for dignity and the fights for hospital rights and for spousal rights and all of those things that we all know very well. And I thought, well, what don't we know? And I stumbled upon the very first mention of this, the gay cancer, the thing that they didn't know what it was called, in July 1981 in the New York Times. And I got permission from the New York Times to use this article. And we did a piece in Unbreakable called, it was about 41 homosexuals who had been afflicted in New York and California. And that's what the first article was about in the New York Times. And we did a piece called 41. And it's I found it so cripplingly moving when the chorus did it, and they do it with this beautiful recreation of a photograph that the chorus took many decades ago, where people turned their backs, and the people whose backs were turned represented the people who had died in the chorus community and the San Francisco Gay Men's chorus community. And we reenacted that and left only a few people facing forward. And it was really harrowing and beautiful. And there are also moments of levity and moments where we get an opportunity, like in The Happy Homosexual, where I got to play Charles Socarides, who was a well-known psychiatrist who basically believed in conversion therapy and was one of the early advocates of it. And so I got to play a crackpot quack of a psychiatrist. And
you did really well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's natural, really. And finally, my mother was so proud of me. I was a doctor.
Right.
And we're releasing The Happy Homosexual this week in Andrew Lippa Week on SFGMC TV. So
fantastic. So we found a way, and Tim and I spent a lot of time figuring out the chronology and making sure that it all made sense as a story. And I think we did it. And it goes all the decades of the 20th century up to now. And ends with the notion, the last song of Unbreakable is called Good Things Take Time. And I had read that in a greeting card in a store. Literally, it was a letterpress greeting card that said, Good Things Take Time. And I thought, oh my God, that's right. Education, love, social justice, anything we value, growing food, anything that matters, writing a book, good things do take time. And the notion of progressivism can be built on not only immediacy, not now, the fierce urgency of now, as we know that particular phrase, but the urgency of beginning now, and that knowing that those of us who have gone through some of these struggles, that it will happen.
I cannot tell you, Andrew, it really just brings a tear to my eye. Sitting here with you and hearing you talk about these three creations that we have partnered with and you've done for the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus. Your music has changed our lives by singing it and changed countless people's lives. These three things that you have created are so enormous. We could have never imagined it without you, and without you stepping in your pushy self and saying, no, I don't want to write one piece. I don't want to share with others. I want to do the whole thing. And it turned out to be the best decision you ever made, and probably the best one I ever put the rubber stamp on and said, okay, I don't know you. I've never met you, but sure, go ahead. Tell us about what it's like right now in your mind for arts organizations in this time that we don't know what the end will look like.
Yeah, I think I can break that down into two parts. One of them is I serve as the president of the board of the Dramatists Guild Foundation, and at DGF, we help playwrights, composers, lyricists, and librettists in theater and promote the art form. But our focus, not even our primary focus, our single focus at the moment is emergency assistance to those folks who write in the theater community, who can't pay their bills, can't buy medicine, can't feed their children, who are experiencing unbelievable hardship. And that's coupled with my memory of, and I'm going to mess this quote up as well, but it doesn't really matter, of Winston Churchill, who, when asked during World War II to cut funding for the arts, for the war effort, and he refused to do it. And he was asked why, and he said, well, then if we do that, what on earth are we fighting for? And I know I paraphrased that, but the whole point is that, what on earth are we fighting for? What are we expecting to do? What is our society? And ask any lawmaker who wants to cut funding to the arts, ask them what they're doing at home when they're not working, what they do at home. Are they listening to music? Are they watching television? Are they reading books? Are they watching their 6-year-old do a little dance in the living room? And the answer is yes, 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 yes. And if that isn't the most profound reason to support the arts, I don't know of another. The idea that it fills our waking moments with a reminder of what it is to be a human being. This illness will pass. This does not remind us what it is to be a human. What reminds us that we are all connected are the opportunities to be around music and art. And I hope that people remember that. I know there's a lot of hardship at the moment, and some people will not be able to support the work of the chorus or other arts organizations, but those who can, I hope now they will.
Thank you so much for being with us. As always, you're brilliant and a real mensch. Everyone who knows you speaks highly of you beyond imagination, because you are such a wonderful man. We love you dearly and can't wait till the next piece that you write for us. Hint.
Here, yes.
Thank you. I will. That's very kind, and I'm so delighted to be part of this, and I wish you all, everyone involved with the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus, just continued good health through this whole period.
Thank you. Love you much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.